Hi, my name is Robert and I'm an industrial designer and visual problem solver. While I don't just use industrial design, I use many of the methods and tools that I learned in other facets on my life as well and with other clients as well. Autodesk asked me if I would be willing to share a bit of my design process and thinking methods. And since lately I've been in the mood to drawing a lot of furniture, and my lovely girlfriend also gave me a new PS4 for early Christmas, I thought why not combine the two and design a TV table that can host a PS4. So this video will be the first part of my design process, namely ideating. The first thing I do whenever I want to design something is research. I was deliberating for quite a bit of what the shape of my TV table should be. One of the first things to do is you want to make sure that you are not just reinventing the wheel. That is why it's good to see what the competition has to offer. In this case, there is a wide variety of different TV tables, big and small and different shaped. You also want to pay attention not to get too inspired by a product you see. You don't want to fall in the trap of copying too many of its elements. To solve this issue, it's good to come up with some restrictions that will help you guide your design in one particular way. For me, I wanted it to harmonize with the shape of the PlayStation 4. I didn't know what exactly, but I wanted to find some of the elements of the console itself in the design. Now we have three versions of the PlayStation 4, the original one, the slim one and the Pro version. I have the slim version, but I feel like the original one is the most recognizable. At least that is what I'm going to go with. So I made the decision to use that for the design language of my TV table. The thing is that with furniture, you already have so many designs that it is hard to come up with something really new and interesting, especially when you want to follow what they hammer into every industrial designer's head. Form follows functions. But unless you are designing a piece of furniture that is a one-off and solves a specific issue that you are having, your main design goal is not going to be function of the furniture. I feel like in this case, and in the case of most furniture, you are allowed to indulge a bit in your aesthetic desire and try and just explore your artistic and visual cravings. The functionality of most furniture is solved, so why not try and make them appealing for ourselves or for a group of people? Better yet, why not look at the aesthetics as part of their functionality, and then we can do form and functionality at the same time. Anyways, let me return to the design process here. As you can see, I started ideating in SketchBook Pro. Ideating for me is also the part of the process where I get rid of all the bad ideas and possible stolen ideas. As I mentioned before, I might get a bit more inspired by something I see during my research, so this is a perfect time for me to notice that. I spend a good amount of time doing a lot of small, lower-res sketches where I try and put every idea that pops into my head on the paper. And these are usually bad ideas, but it frees up my mind to think of better, newer ones. Here, for example, you could see me starting with the actual shape of the PlayStation, after which I tried adapting the actual shape into the furniture itself. Horrible, very stupid idea, but I needed to put it on paper, or in this case into SketchBook, so it won't clog up my brain and I can start thinking of other solutions. As you saw, I like to start sketching in 3D. For some reason, that is how my brain processes information. Now, this is not something good or bad, it's just how I work. Many people like to start with a whole bunch of easier 2D sketches, which is also perfectly fine. Actually, at one point, I did try to sketch just a couple of front sketches, totally in 2D, of the table. I did this for two reasons. One, I forced my brain to step out of its pattern and think of the issue in a different way. If you are comfortable with doing something one way all the time, it's good to throw a wrench into that mechanism to force yourself to step outside the box and think a bit differently. And two, it's easy to copy-paste a shape and do quick iterations on it. Of course, I could do that in a 3D sketch as well, but a simplified 2D shape lends itself much more to that method, at least in my opinion. Now, I've been talking about sketching and drawing, and this video is all about sketching, but you don't have to be a good sketcher to do this ideation part. In this part, we want to gather as many ideas and the solutions as possible. If it is scribbles, stick figures, drawings, or even
collages. It doesn't matter as long as you manage to convey what is in your brain. I always sketch because I love drawing. I grew up with it. I started studying computer sciences and decided to switch to mechanical engineering because at least there I could do some technical drawings, and I really wanted to do something with my developing love for sketching. I took that even further when I decided to do my master's in industrial design engineering. I wanted to bring even more drawing into my engineering profession. But the point is that pretty drawing is not a prerequisite. Let me take it even further. Drawing in itself is not necessary. If you like CAD modeling more and are faster with it, by all means, jump directly into CAD. If you can create mock-up designs in Fusion 360 that showcase your ideas, you are golden. I had plenty of study mates at uni who didn't care for sketching at all. They just did the bare minimum to pass the class, and with every project, they did their thinking in CAD directly. So make sure to use the tools you are most comfortable with. My ideation phase usually ends either with one design that I really like and I take further, or several designs that I combine into one. In this case, I went with one particular idea that incorporates metal legs that wrap around the table itself. I've been very much into mid-century modern style lately, but with the added twist of incorporating some industrial metal frames. So I thought I'm going to indulge in this obsession of mine and use it here as well. As I mentioned earlier, when I'm done with the ideation, I select the design I like the most and tend to work it out a bit more. That can be going a bit more in depth with some of the mechanisms, or also just simply sketching it from different angles. This can be somewhat time consuming, and especially when you quickly model something in 3D, you can do the turnarounds with the move of a mouse. However, I noticed that whenever I redraw the same design from a different angle, I tend to learn something new, discover issues, or come up with a new idea I want to implement. So aside from redrawing things being really fun, in my case, it can be also quite useful. Another useful thing to do is exploring the functionality of the design. In my case, which doors open, how and in which directions do they open, which area is supposed to be holding what. So all sorts of things like this. These don't have to be detailed or particularly correct. This idea is to give a hint of functionality and to better convey the purpose of the design product. This can be for the client or for myself, especially when I feel like pumping out several designs in one go and want to look back on them later. Since my process is quite fluid and I like to jump back and forth between different elements, I did not record this part, but you can see the final ideation visual at the end of the video. You can see that I also started redrawing the table in higher resolution and rendering it out. This is not necessary for ideation, but I like to do it. It is really fun having a really nice visual of what I had in my head, how the product should look like. I just want to come away from the ideation phase with one really juicy visual on top of all the sketches. But more importantly, it can be quite useful as well. It can be very helpful in selling an idea to a client. A nicely polished visual attracts attention and gives a much better idea how a product might look like in real life or in a specific context. It pretty much serves the same purpose as a product render, but instead of selling the product, I want to sell the idea. Now, this is something that we have to be careful with because you don't always want to push your ideas on the client. You do want to give them choice, but sometimes it might help to give the client a nudge in the right direction. Doing the more rendered version of the table also helped me in choosing the right type of wood for the product. I like working with photo textures, which in this case helped me in trying out different types of wood for the lighter material. And thanks to the ease of changing different wood textures, I could filter out the type of wood I did not like. This way clarifying even more what my expectation for the end designs will be. With all this done, I have a sheet with a whole bunch of ideation sketches and a more worked out, nicely rendered version of the design as well. If needed, I can jump back and take ideas from other sketches, but the next step will be taking the nicely rendered version of the table and building it in Fusion 360. That part of the design phase will be about building the table piece by piece, further checking for functionality, and buildability, all of this in Fusion 360. But all of that will be in the next video. I do hope you enjoyed this little excursion into what goes on in my head when I'm in the ideation phase of my design process, and hopefully you could also take something away from it. Thanks for your time and see you around!